Hello everyone, I'm Force McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Germany in Hearts of Iron 4, number 14. We left off preparing an invasion over into the eastern seaboard of the, well, Canadian area. We don't actually have enough naval superiority to pull off our planned invasion, so we might just have to scrap it and start a new one. Turns out the Japanese have taken over Alaska, or yeah, at least the majority of it. So we are actually really falling behind, and that is just absolutely terrible. We cannot stand for that. Now, I had wanted to just, step in and invade the North American continent, more or less by my own, heroically, with the German Empire, German Reich, leading the way. We declare war on Portugal really quickly just to finally seal up control over all of Europe. We will have really just a united Europe in just a moment. We've also just finished research of a new Panzer tank, the Panther, I believe, so that is great news. It will not at all, in any likelihood, be ready in time for our invasion of the United States. However, it's good to get it on their way, just in case the invasion doesn't go as well as I would like. And we may as well set ourselves up for long-term success if we have the opportunity to do so. Meanwhile, the Portuguese are just kind of being torn apart. They really don't have very much ability to resist, at least not in Europe proper. Their colonies will probably hold out for a while longer, since they do kind of screw up the African front just a bit by the very process of now being hostile. You'll notice there are allied groups just more or less making their way throughout Africa right now. That is less than ideal, however, not really any significant issue. The main thing is going to be taking over the United States, which we are still not anywhere near doing. We don't even have the ability to launch the invasion we have planned just yet. However, hopefully that will change with time, and we will be able to, one, defeat the Portuguese pretty quickly, since the majority of our armored units are in Portugal right now, and two, once that's done, we'll get hopefully a foothold somewhere. We are going to just cancel the existing invasion plan and come up with a new one that won't require us to control the eastern seaboard's naval, just entire area. So we do go ahead and try that, however, it still doesn't look as though it'll work. So we're going to launch an invasion more or less into the Quebec area, and Quebec will be the area to just get us into the door, get us onto the continent. We could probably go and support the Japanese invasion of Alaska, if we take a very circuitous route around the continent. However, I would rather we open our own front and launch our own invasion. I'm not sure exactly how much resistance we're likely to face, probably a considerable amount. However, that is really just the nature of the beast. We are invading transcontinentally with a rather weak surface navy, although a very powerful air force that did sink at least one American fleet in the last episode. So hopefully we will be able to do at least a decent job of this. We have to try at the very least. Otherwise, the alternative is it's going to be essentially a Cold War until one side or another develops the tools and the means to go to nuclear war against the other. With the Portuguese on the mainland completely defeated, we go ahead and split off our army groups. The idea just kind of being that we will make as many full groups as we can, and we actually have 3 full groups now, or at least the ability to have 3 full groups now, as well as the 2 armies of just regular infantry, garrisons, and whatnot. So with that all set up fairly well, we are in a good position to, once we do actually get a foothold, really begin the war. Until then, there is still the African front to fight, where Portugal is still in existence, and the Japanese are kind of bogging down in the Alaskan area. It'll take something like 85 days for our massive invasions of the Brazilian region to be fully planned out and capable for being launched. It would probably be more efficient to just send a small detachment of forces over into Brazil, secure the landing sites. That was awfully said. But secure the landing sites and then move on from there. I noticed there was a naval invasion going on in Spain, but it looks like we'll just deal with that. The Japanese doing weirdly little against the South Pacific areas, and we are just trying to rove through all of Africa right now. However, it's pretty slow going, since it's just such a large continent with such little infrastructure, and most of our forces are infantry, where we have predominantly used mechanized or mobilized forces throughout really just every other portion of the war. We have upgraded our submarine technology, which is pretty great, but maybe hopefully not too important once we have control over the seas and seaboards. And yes, with that all said and done, it is really just a matter of planning, just kind of keeping all of these fronts generally moving forward. Hopefully we can take out the new African head of the Portuguese Empire. This plan is nearly ready to go. We go ahead and activate it. Now it's just a matter of getting our forces over there more or less safely. And once we manage to achieve that, we can hopefully start bringing in reinforcements, maybe even canceling our Brazilian invasion plans, and just going full force with the entire weight of the German mobilized military machinery into the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada. Alright, so with that all more or less in motion, we will see how well we do at dropping our troops off. And it takes a worryingly large amount of time. We do manage to land our forces. None of them are anywhere near a naval base, so we need to get a naval base before we run out of supplies and everyone is forced to surrender, which is what happened when we invaded Iceland the first time, which is why we lost those 5 light panzers, which was a bit of a blow to sustain. It does look, however, as though we are going to be able to get at least a decent way throughout the countryside. We are hopefully going to be able to just drive through and take that port. If we can take the port in Canada near this one motorized unit, we will be in a good spot. In Africa, we're going to just generally move forward, but probably from here on out just leave the entire front more or less to the AI, since we will have much bigger issues to deal with. Alright, back in North America, we are trying to get our units more or less together, more or less towards other areas they can hopefully get to and just reinforce themselves at. If we take this port, we will be in a great spot. We can start carrying over reinforcements and just moving forward from there. We do have 12 reinforcements waiting, and we're going to start researching right now, just a little bit of industry. We can't research nuclear bombs for another year and a few days. So it's definitely not going to be wonder weapons, especially if we can get more forces. Now we go ahead and send reinforcements over immediately. We have the first port. It looks as though there is a Canadian Navy battling our U-boats right now off the coast, which is very terrible. If they're able to blockade us or just prevent enough supplies from reaching our forces, this could be the deathbed of a very large portion of the German mobile military machine. That being said, though, it looks as though there are very sparse defenders in Canada. However, a very worryingly large amount of defenders in the United States who managed to just push us immediately back out. We were almost going to get into Maine. That does not appear to be happening. We are at least defending ourselves more or less successfully where they are pressing us out of, I believe it's Nova Scotia. I'm not really a great figure in Canadian geography, so I'm not sure what exactly that region is called. At any rate, though, we can rename it once we take the place over. We have our reinforcements. We're going to start plunging through their countryside. Hopefully these are enough forces that we can actually get a decently sized foothold, maybe even press into territory of the United States. And taking a look, Canada is nowhere near surrendering, which does make sense. We've only taken one of their cities. I look for their victory points. They're all more or less along the American border, which is quite sensible. And we're going to just try our best, really. We are pushed back quite a bit. However, we did manage to take another port in the Nova Scotia region. I really hope that's right. We did take the Canadian capital, and we're plunging forward after more of their victory points, also a little bit into the United States. We still have not properly entered and held any American territory. We do just cross over right there, but it looks as though we're losing that battle somewhat. We can go ahead and get some of our air forces, of which we have a considerable amount, and hopefully bring them to bear against the Americans in their own skies, which will hopefully give us a little bit more of an edge in the combat to come, and which is presently occurring. We did lose one of our motorized units, which was rather sad, and it looks as though we may lose a bit of the Canadian countryside. Our new units are starting to get into production. We have about 6 of them right now, which is not really a strategically significant number at present. Hopefully we will get a decent number of those ready to go in the nearish future. Until then, though, we are sending more of our Air Force over. Hopefully we will get air superiority in the North American continent, or at least in the areas that we're fighting around. Now, you'll notice that the areas aren't red from the air map mode. So it doesn't look as though the Americans even have forces of their own defending the area, and now that those reinforcements have arrived, we're starting to push them back a little bit, and we do actually control a bit of territory in the United States proper. So that is very good news. We can hopefully just keep bringing more forces in. You'll notice we're sending over the other 2 army groups, so we should have a full 48-ish, depending on whether or not they all survive the transit. But we should have another very large group of really just our mobile forces. And if we can pull that off, if we can get all of these troops into the theater, get a secure foothold, which right now we don't really have. We have kind of 2 footholds, somewhat adjacent to one another, but very clearly divided. Once we manage to really hold on to a distinct portion of this territory, it is not going to go anywhere but up for us. We will do nothing but succeed. It's just a matter of if we can or cannot successfully hold this position long enough. You'll notice our forces did just get cut off from one another in the far north, where there's really not much worth fighting for. Over here in the actual United States, in the main Vermont area, we are making progress. Other areas are bogging down, unable to actually defeat the American and Allied forces near them. Although it does look as though we might be able to split off the main defenders from the rest of the American continent. So if we can encircle and destroy those forces, that would be a tremendous boon for us. It looks as though we might actually be able to succeed just with all the extra numbers we brought in, and we did manage to just break through and hold a portion, cutting them all off. They don't have any ports. So if we can just maintain that, that will be great. It looks as though we are finally turning it against the Americans in the area. If we can just hold it all together, then I think that this is something that we can realistically succeed at, and succeed at rather quickly. Alright, so with that all said, we are still attempting to just attack wherever possible. We can hopefully unite these 2 disparate groups and make them into just one united front. We do have a few units caught behind enemy lines, which is terribly unfortunate. Luckily, we have considerable numbers of reinforcements inbound right now. It looks as though we may have lost 1 or 2 on the transit over. That was really to be expected. And more groups are being caught behind enemy lines. There are really no dedicated fronts right now, just a series of chaotic areas wherein pretty much anything could probably happen. However, we have 48-ish, probably more like 46 or 44 groups in transit right now, who will land in just a few moments, and once they do, provided we're actually capable of supplying them, we should be able to just start making tremendous gains against the United States in just a few moments. The most important thing, though, is that we have a more or less secure foothold. We've advanced deeper into their countryside. We're researching technologies right now to hopefully maintain our edge on the battlefield. So we are going to go ahead and get an artillery version of the Panther tank, which might be a little ridiculous, but hopefully sufficient. We did land our reinforcements just now. The important thing, which was an overwhelming success, is that we took over ports. Now that we control ports, we were able to bring in the majority of our armored forces. We have the entire armored core of the German Reich in the North American continent right now. The trick is, I don't know if we can supply it, but we do have supplies for right now. And if we utilize this massive advantage that we have fighting in their countryside to seize more and larger ports, then this invasion could very well go profoundly in our favor. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We will be back shortly, or soon, at any rate.